Welcome to Revisiting Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Part 5, Volume 5. We will actually be splitting Season 2 into 4 videos, because 4 discs, 4 videos. Which, you wanna know what, is fine, because the Dan Richardson show is nothing if not flexible. So, here we go. As I said in the last part, I think Season 2 isn't as strong as Season 1 is, but you want to what? There are good episodes in the season. I think, it doesn't start off strong, but it does finish strong, so I'm excited to sort of talk about that with y'all and all that kind of good stuff. So, this is now an 8-part series, not a 6-part, and I think there's still going to be a bonus episode, so stay tuned for that. But, happy Christmas time, I guess. So let's talk about it. So, episode 1 of Season 2 is called The Private War of Dr. Doom. This essentially sees Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm go hang out with some of the Avengers to play poker. And, of course, Iron Man and the Wasp visit Sue Storm and Reed Richards, as they basically describe to them what happened at the end of the last season, as they go, as they were in Asgard and having a pretty good time while doing it. Little do they know that Dr. Doom is going to attack not only Avengers Mansion, but also the Baxter Building, as he attempts and successfully succeeds at kidnapping the Wasp and Sue Storm. And you learn at the end of the episode that he did this so he could figure out which one of them were Skrulls, because yes, Dr. Doom knows about the Skrull invasion, and of course, at the end of the last season, we saw Captain America get switched with a Skrull, so what possible excitement could be held there? That being said, I think this is a pretty solid episode. It's pretty good. I do like some of the fun banter that Johnny and the Thing have with Hulk, Black Panther, and Captain America. I think that's fun. Hulk, Black Panther, Captain America, and Hawkeye. Like, that's pretty fun. It's nice to see them, especially since we're dealing with Dr. Doom, who is a fairly serious character. There's one joke involving him, but they don't ever make a joke, about him or with him or whatever. He's not a part of the joke. He's always deadpanned. And I think that's an important thing to know about Dr. Doom, is that that's who he is. He takes himself very, very seriously. And yeah, I like Dr. Doom. I think he's pretty good in this show. And it's nice to see a callback actually to the first part of the Breakout episode from last season, because that episode starts with Dr. Doom selling Stark technology to AIM. Iron Man calls back to that, and yeah, it's nice. It's overall a fun little episode to kick off the season, and it builds upon the mystery. Episode 2 is called Alone Against AIM, and Alone Against AIM is about the supreme leader of AIM, who's sort of like right below MODOK. He wants revenge on the Avengers, specifically Tony Stark, for getting most of AIM arrested last season, and for getting MODOK particularly arrested last season. And so he's going to use Technovore, who's an Iron Man villain that eats technology, to eat the arc reactor in Tony's chest, and all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, you also get to see Rhodey. I love Rhodey. My favorite version of Rhodey is probably from what's it called? Forgive me, Armored Adventures. But this is a pretty good Rhodey as well, and it's nice to see him in the show and have a pretty cool character design. And I do like the actor. I think his name is Butler Roberts, or something like that. He was Bumblebee in Transformers Animated, and I love Bumblebee. I love Transformers Animated, so it was nice to see him in this. Of course, Captain America. I like that Skrull Cap isn't particularly super connivingly evil. He's just very subtly evil, and you see him get Captain America's hollow shield from like the next Avengers movie. So that's that. Also, I love how this volume that doesn't have Skrull Cap has regular Cap, and this volume that has regular Cap has Skrull Cap. I think that's funny. But yeah, it's nice. It's a good episode, and it does have some more of that storyline where Maria Hill wants to turn the Avengers into just agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and registered superheroes. She talks about how if Iron Man was to register and become an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., perhaps Spider-Man and the X-Men would as well. And I will say, I think Maria Hill is a good antagonistic character. I really don't like her. I think that's the right way to handle it. You should despise villains. I mean, obviously, you're allowed to like villains. Fun villains are fun. But I think the mark of a true villain is if you despise them. Like Magneto in X-Men 97. I utterly despise that man. But yeah, unfortunately, and you're going to maybe see a pattern of this. This possible leading up to Civil War subplot doesn't really go anywhere this season because they were perhaps setting it up for season 3. And I think that's a bit of the problem with season 2 of this show, is that there's some things that might carry over to a season 3 that just never happened, and that sucks. But yeah, I personally liked this episode, but I didn't love it. Next is Acts of Vengeance. This episode sees the Enchantress try to take on, or to defeat, the Masters of Evil, because the Masters of Evil in the last season were pawns of Loki. Well, the Enchantress failed, so now she's blaming the Masters of Evil and trying to destroy all of them. Well, does she know that Zemo, along with some of the remaining Masters, go to the Avengers for help? And we see some nice moments with Wonder Man, and I think Zemo has a bit of an inkling that Captain America is different, but he doesn't really know the full extent of how different Captain America is. And like I said, Captain America isn't like, ooh, I'm not who I think. You're not who I think I am. But he's more just subtly evil. He's subtly a different type of person compared to regular Cap. And Zemo gets that, you know what I mean? And it's nice, it's fun. I do like this episode. I love what they do with Wonder Man, and I think some of the action is fun. It's fun to see the Executioner, because Hulk at the end of last season stole his axe. The Executioner has to have, like, giant shotguns. So that's kind of funny just to see him with those, but, like, I don't know. This is a good episode that I think leads into the Surtur stuff, but Surtur, like Civil War, is sort of the thing that they put on the back burner this season to do in season 3, perhaps, and that just kind of stinks. But yeah, at the end of this episode, Wonder Man kind of ill-advisedly destroys the Nornstone to Muspelheim, and the Enchantress gets caught in the blast, transferred to Muspelheim, and lo and behold, Surtur is there, and that's not good. And actually, we see throughout the episode, I guess the bulk of the episode takes place before the Thor subplot, but we see that Thor and Odin, along with Balder, go investigate, Elder Stahl, the sword from Thor Tales of Asgard, is gone. The Sword of Twilight is gone. And of course, Surtur stole it, and we see in a few episodes, Surtur tried to forge it once again to recreate that sword and possibly create or have vengeance on, Asgard. Next is probably my favorite episode from this volume, but there is one other contender. Episode 4, Welcome to the Kree Empire. This episode sees Miss Marvel, who is as brash and as headstrong as ever, going to be like, look, you guys from the Kree Empire, we see the return of Captain Marvel, Young Rog, who is Jude Law's character from Captain Marvel. Yeah, he's actually a comic book character. They didn't just make him up. Young Rog, and of course, Ronan the Accuser show up, and Ronan's like, this planet has been decreed to be judged. I will judge it. And Marvel's like, no, don't worry, dude. This planet, the Avengers were a fluke. This planet should be studied. It should be all good. It's all good. Of course, Miss Marvel has different plans as she mops the floor with the Kree. And I said this in part 3, but I think because it's just kind of neat and understandable why MCU Carol and why EMH Carol are very similar characters, because they're the same character. They're both headstrong. They're both determined women who will kick the knickas of any person in their way. And I think it's all about the writing, because you get Carol in this, and she's a bit brash, but you just love how she's written. She's written, they write brash really well in this show. And Jennifer Hale, who's a very talented voice actress, you may know her from Metal Gear, or she played Jean Grey in X-Men 87. Black Cat in the X-Men 90s show. She's a really talented and prolific voice actress, and she just brings it. And I think, as I said in part 3, I think the Marvels took us towards this direction of a well-written Captain Marvel, but I think that's just the difference between MCU and EMH Captain Marvel, is that one of them was well-written and the other one wasn't, unfortunately. And I can't wait to perhaps, because I actually do I'm one of the few people who likes the Marvels. So, yeah. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, it's also nice to see Skrullcap. Like I said, Skrullcap is very subtle. He is the first Avenger to attack the Kree. And you understand why if you've been catching up, but it's nice to sort of have Iron Man be like, that was out of character moment with Cap. But at the end of this episode, they are warned that the Kree will now choose to invade Earth, because Earth is not a fluke. Earth is a viable threat to the Kree Empire, so Kree will be coming up to storm the base, if you will. And Skrullcap is seen being like, we have to move up our timetable, which they, of course, do. And Miss Marvel joins the Avengers. And forgive my neighbors if you can hear them. Next is... I realized I wasn't wearing the Marvel shirt. Oops. Okay, next is episode 5, To Steal an Ant-Man. So, after the last season, obviously, Ant-Man quit the Avengers, and he was like, peace out, homies. But he returned one last time to destroy all of his equipment. And, of course, Janet was like, look, you can't just leave the Avengers. And he's like, yes, I can. I don't like how violent they are. I don't really agree with them ideologically. And honestly, I'm just kind of here because of you. Let me leave. And Janet's like, no, you can't do that. And he realizes, oh, poop. Someone stole my Ant-Man gear. That person being Scott Lang. And he realizes this, and he's like, oh no, this is really bad because someone stole my stuff. And he can't really go to the Avengers because he just kind of had a very, aggressive quitting. So who does he call? He calls the Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage and Iron Fist. And it is really cool to see Luke Cage and Iron Fist in this way because, yeah, they're awesome. And, I love seeing those characters. I like them. Hopefully there's a Disney Plus show in the future called Heroes for Hire. But they work together, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Ant-Man, Hank Pym, to figure out who stole the Ant-Man suit. Of course, it's Scott Lang, and we see him be like, look, a few years back, my daughter Cassie was sick, and I couldn't cover the medical bills, so I went to bank robbing. Well, the guy I worked for, William Cross, thinks that I just hid the money. He doesn't realize that I used the money to save Cassie, so now I have to come up with new money, and I thought the best way to do that was to steal it as Ant-Man. And Henry, Hank is very much upset about that, but you get to see what makes Hank such an interesting character in this episode, where it's like he's very much a mopier version of this, but he's still smart, he's still a bit of a nerd, but he also has some of that underlying aggression with him, which made him such an effective hero. But he's just defeated, and his depression will of course lead to something much darker down the line. But I liked seeing Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I like seeing this early version of Scott Lang. This is a bit more in line with the comics compared to what Paul Rudd does. Of course, I love the first Ant-Man movie. It's kind of the only good Ant-Man movie, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, it was nice to see Scott, and Scott was like, at the end of the episode, says, look, I'll give you back your stuff and turn myself to the police if you want me to, and Hank is like, no, I'll tell the Avengers that Ant-Man was on an undercover mission, and they will tell the police that you keep the suit. You can be Ant-Man. And yeah. It's a really strong episode that I think just has some fun dialogue and fun banter and fun action involving Luke Cage and Iron Fist. And it's nice to have a little bit of heart with that Ant-Man Scott Lang story. And yeah, it's pretty much good. I like it. Next is Michael Korvac, episode 6. Michael Korvac is about this fugitive of the Kree Empire. He was a human who got experimented by the Kree, and he is a criminal now. He was found, or he blew up the Kree ship that experimented on him, and he blew up a space station with a significant portion of the surface of a planet that it was orbiting along with it. And of course, the very crappy, very comic-esque Guardians of the Galaxy can't have that. And I don't know, this episode is just kind of a bit lame, because this very comic accurate version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, they aren't, we're not able to have fun with them because they're only in like half the episode. Michael Korvac doesn't really seem that super fleshed out at all either, and I don't know, like, it just feels very much like a dud, which stinks to say because this episode is dedicated to Boyd Kirtland. Boyd Kirtland seemed to be an instrumental figure. I keep having problems with that word today. Instrumental figure in the creation of Wolverine and the X-Men, being a director on that show. He directed and I think co-wrote Batman Sub-Zero. He has had a long history with superhero cartoons. And he even directed a few episodes of this season. And this episode is dedicated to him, and he, of course, directed this episode. And I think he does a good job at directing, these shows. But this episode just, was, a bit more on the right here, on the, not bad, but just leaning towards that. And I think that's slightly a problem with this season, somewhat. But I think they scale a little bit more towards just okayness, less than bad. But this is not the worst episode of the show by far. It's just, it's a little mediocre. Next is episode 7, The Ballad of Bitter Ray Bill. And this is about Bitter Ray Bill, who's like a horse bionic man type dude, alien, who is able to wield Mjolnir. And of course, Thor's like, I would be willing to give it to you if you need it. It will help you a lot more than it's helping me right now, since I'm just sort of investigating the Surtur stuff. Odin's like, there's another thing we can do. So he gets Stormbreaker. And Beta Ray Bill is awesome. I love how dynamic of a character he is in this episode. I like that Sif starts this episode off being like, I don't understand what you see in these mortals, this obsession with Midgard. And then by the end of the episode, because she performs a friendship, a connection with Beta Ray Bill, she's like, I get it now. Like, I understand why you like these humans so much. And it's nice. Of course, Beta Ray Bill's his ship, Scuttlebutt, along with his entire like planet of people inside this colony ship called Scuttlebutt, have a problem with Surtur. Surtur used Beta Ray Bill's like home world as like a smoldering pit, because his home world seems to be a volcano planet. So he used his planet as a smoldering pit as he wields the shattered pieces of Elder Skull back into the Twilight Sword. And of course, the Enchantress is also there because she was enslaved by Surtur in the second episode. She's there in like red leather, and she's of course a victim, a slave of Surtur, but she also looks cool because her hair's on fire, and it's overall just good fun. I think Beta Ray Bill is my second favorite episode from this volume, because number one is of course Welcome to the Kree Empire, and yeah, I love this season. I think it's a good solid season. I think this disc is a good example of like what you can get, because some of it is really good, some of it is just kind of mediocre, and I think that's this whole season. Because this season had some issues with it, and we will of course get into those issues next time. But yeah, this episode had some issues. This season had some issues, and I don't know, like it's very interesting. But yeah, but this disc is pretty solid, and who knows, maybe I'll finish season 2 and say, you want to know what, actually I was wrong, this season is better than I remember, because that's happened before. And I would love to be proven wrong. So stay tuned to see if I am, or to see if my suspicions are confirmed. Overall, I still love this show, and I'm still super excited. I've literally been buzzing all day once I realized that I could just split this into 4 parts and make it an 8-part series. Like, I'm so excited. I've done this type of, I've sort of done something this ambitious before, of course, and it doesn't usually pan out because I'm such a small YouTuber. But I genuinely just have such a good feeling about this project, and I hope that you guys are just as excited as me to be on this journey, because I love this show so much. So remember that God made you special. He loves you very much. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I hope you had a lovely November and a jolly December, I guess. So that's it for now, and never underestimate the power of Beta Ray Bill.